Hello, it's Teresa. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Today's video is a tutorial to show you how to make the base of what I'm calling a next level paper bag mini album. And this album that I made using that design measures 6 7/8 by 8 1/2, and it has a 2 1/8 inch spine. To see a full walkthrough of this album, be sure to click on the link below the video. And if you haven't seen the walkthrough yet, I'm just going to give you a quick look at the kind of construction we will be working on today. It's basically just a few different page layout designs to keep it simple but fun, including some flip outs, pockets, some top loading pockets. So that is one page layout design. Here's another, just with a pocket. Just a plain page that you can put a large photo on. More flip outs. As you can see, we're just kind of repeating and mixing and matching these designs. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is construct our chipboard cover. For this, you will need 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard that are cut 6 3/4 inches wide by 8 1/2 inches tall, and 1 piece that is cut 2 inches by 8 1/2 inches. I'll also be using a 1-inch double-sided tape, 3/8 inch Scor tape, or any double-sided tape that you have. Or if you prefer, you can use wet glue for this process. We're going to cover the back of our chipboard with the double-sided tape. This is how I did mine. Like I said, you can use wet glue for this process. I just find that the double-sided tape doesn't leave any lines, any glue lines showing in my projects, and no air bubbles. It just seals everything down nicely, so that's what I prefer to use. To wrap our chipboard, we're going to need 2 pieces of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock. You're going to want to use a lightweight cardstock, like 65 pounds, and I'm using a Shimmer Cardstock from Recollections. My album is going to be an Easter theme. We're going to take 1 piece of our 8 1/2 by 11, and on the 8 1/2 inch side, we are going to, right at the edge, place our 1/4 inch Scor tape. So we're just going to run it right along the edge. Burnish that down with your bone folder to make sure that you have good adhesion. And for this step, I like to bring in my scoreboard. This is not necessary. I just find that it helps me with this process. So what I do is I place my 8 1/2 by 11 sheet in with the side with the Scor tape on the right-hand side. Peel back the backing, but just a little bit, and kind of bend it over, having it stick out so that I can access that. Then I bring in my next sheet, and I'm just going to line it up with the Scor tape. So right where the Scor tape ends, I'm going to press it down, and I'm just going to hold it like that while I pull off the rest of my backing. And now I have my 2 pieces connected to make a longer sheet to wrap my album. Again, I'm going to burnish that down with my bone folder. Now, ideally, I would have about 1 inch all the way around to wrap my album after I lay my chipboard down. I'm not going to have that width-wise simply because I wanted my seam to end on my spine. So even if I were to join 3 pieces together to give me just that little extra bit, I would have 2 seams and they wouldn't be on my spine. I don't like the way that looks, so we're just going to make it work with about 1/2 inch on the sides and the 1 inch at the top. So I'm going to start by marking just a guideline at the top at the 1 inch mark. And I'm just going to take my ruler and just go across, make a pencil line at that 1 inch, just to give me a guide. Doesn't have to be exact. You don't even have to do this step if you don't want to. I'm just showing you how I do it. And then to start off with, we know that we're going to need a 1/2 inch over on this side. So we are going to mark that. And I'm just going to draw a pencil line down like that. So now we have a corner, and that is where we will place our first piece of chipboard. So we're going to take one of our 6 3/4 by 8.5 inch pieces, and we're going to remove the backing off of the double-sided tape. I'm right-handed, so I like to go from left to right when doing this, so I have a place to rest my hand and I'm not getting it in the adhesive. Now we're going to flip our piece over and just line it up with that corner mark that we made, the best that we can. And press it down. Next, you want your piece that measures 2 by 8.5. And again, we're going to take the backing off of the double-sided tape. Now we want to leave an 1/8 of an inch spacing between our chipboard. Now, one way you could do that is to put your ruler up against your chipboard and simply use it as a guide for an 1/8 of an inch. Or another way you can do it is you can glue 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard together and create your own shim, which is what I have done. I've used this for years and I just find it to be very handy. So I just press it up against my chipboard piece. Then I take my next piece of chipboard and I simply press it up against it. Make sure both sides don't have any gaps. And I stick it down and I have perfect spacing every time. Next, take your second piece of 6 3/4 by 8.5 inch chipboard and remove the backing. Grab your shim or your ruler, line it up against your 2 by 8.5 inch piece, and just line it up and place it down. Place those down into place. Now on the bottom, I've got a little bit more than an inch. I'm just going to eyeball that and take it down a little bit because we don't need that much. Next, we want to miter our corners, leaving that same kind of 1/8 of an inch space from the corner of the chipboard. And I found this handy tool on Amazon. It's for bookbinding. And I use this every time. I simply pull it up like this, slip it over the corner of my chipboard. See, it just goes right there. Take my scissors and cut. And I do that on all 4 corners. Now I'm going to take my 3/8 inch score tape and I am going to put it along these two shorter sides. Right up against the chipboard. I know some people are very confident in tearing their score tape. I'm not one of those people. I don't have a lot of success with that, so I prefer just to take the time to cut it. Put it on this side because that's my angle left on from the last cut. And for these, I'm going to use the same double-sided tape that I used on the chipboard. Again, placing it right up against the chipboard. And do that on both long sides. Next, we're going to burnish our tape down with our bone folder, making sure we have a nice adhesion. And this next step is very important because we want to avoid any cracks that we can in our cardstock. So I'm just going to start gently bending my cardstock up. You can lift it up like this if you prefer, just to kind of train it into place. I think that works better on the long sides, and because we have some short sides, I'm going to use a little bit gentler method. So for these, I'm just going to kind of go back and forth, let the heat of my hand work to help break down those paper fibers, and really just be patient with it. Do the other side. And back to the long sides, doing the same thing, letting the heat of our hand help to break down those paper fibers. I like to start with my long sides. So what I'm going to do is just lift off the backing from my double-sided tape. Gently bring it up and secure it down. I like to start in the middle and then press out from both sides. Use my bone folder, get that down really nice. And if you do have a little bit of cracking, don't worry about it, we can fix it. Gonna flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. On the short end, we're going to remove our tape backing. And we're going to gently tuck in the corners, just pushing them in a little bit down and forward. I just do it with my fingernails. You can do it with your bone folder. And then we're going to flip up that side and adhere it down. Repeat that process on the other side. Now I like to take my bone folder and go very gently in between the pieces of chipboard where there are gaps. Just score it very gently. Now we have our cover. Next, we need a piece of 65-pound weight cardstock to reinforce our hinge. And this piece is cut 5 by 8 1/4. I'm going to use my 3/8 inch Scor tape, and I'm just going to run it along the edges of my chipboard. This will help to prevent wrinkles and bubbling at that area. So basically all of the exposed edges, that's where I'm placing the Scor tape. And as you can see, I'm just going overlapping my cover paper just by a little bit. I'm not going like all the way to the end or anything like that. Burnish that down. Remove the backing. And for this step, I like to use a combination of the Scor tape and some wet glue. I'm using the Beacon 3-in-1 because it will not show any glue lines or wrinkle my paper. So just in the center area is basically where I'm going to focus with that. In fact, what I can do is just put it directly on my piece. So I'm going to outline the edges. And just give that a nice coating of the 3-in-1. We want to make sure we have enough glue on this piece because our hinge will be glued to it. Then we are just going to center this piece up and down, left and right, as best we can. and lay it down. I take my bone folder and really make sure that all of the air is out of there and that everything is well adhered. Using my ruler as a guide, I'm going to go right up to these little indentations that we made on the top and on the bottom. Kind of use my ruler to help me with this and just give that a nice score. Again, applying gentle pressure, going back and forth. And we'll do the same thing over here. I'm not going to attempt to fold this yet. I'm going to give it a little bit of time to dry. And while that's drying, we're going to set it aside, just flat, and work on our hinge. To make our hinge, we're going to need 1 piece of 65-pound weight cardstock cut to 7.5 inches by 10 3/4. We're going to place our piece on the scoreboard with the 10 3/4 inch side up at the top. We're going to score at 1.5, 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 2 3/4, 3, 3.5, 4, 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 6 3/4, 7 1/4, 7 3/4, 8, 8.5, 9, and 9 1/4. So your piece should look like this. So when looking at our piece, the 1/2 inch marks that you'll see here, 2 together, here 2 together, 2 together, here, here, and here, those are going to be our hinges. So for those, we just kind of want to, we're going to start there at our first one. We're going to fold and burnish. And then we're going to fold, see, we'll have these 2 lines. We're just going to fold back on the one closest to the 1/2 inch. Burnish. And then we're going to flip it over and we are going to fold this way, creating our hinge. So now you'll have your first hinge. And we're going to do the same thing. So basically you're skipping this 1/4 inch. You're coming up to the next 2 1/2 inch pieces, and we're going to do a mountain fold right there between the 2. I think it's easier to do this flat, like that. And And then we're going to do the same thing where we fold right on this line right next to it. Just fold over. Again, creating our hinge. So now we have 2 hinges, and we're just going to keep going. So again, we're going to skip this 1/4 inch, go to the next line, do a mountain fold. So that's going to be between those 2 1/2 inch scores. I'm trying to do it so that you can best see it on camera, but it's a little awkward, so fold back on that 1/4 inch mark, burnish down, and then fold forward on the 1/4 inch mark and burnish down. And now we have our 3rd hinge. So keep going. We're going to skip the 1/4 inch, go right to the 1/2 inch, fold up, fold back on the 1/4 inch score next to the one that we just folded up, burnish down, then fold forward. We're just folding back and forth on the hinge that we create. Skip the next 1/4, go to the next 1/2 inch score line, pinch it, get it started. Press down on that 1/4 inch score line next to it, burnish down, go forward. Trust me, this is the hardest part. And once you've done it a couple of times, if you haven't already, it's not a big deal. And we're just going to do the last one. Folding back, burnishing down, and folding back again. Okay, now that we have created all of our hinges, what we need to do is adhere them together. Now you're going to notice that you have a score line on each side. Don't worry about that right now. That's just to guide us later on. So we're going to flip this over. And I'm going to turn it this way because I find it easier to work this way. And I'm going to grab my 1/4 inch score tape. And I'm going to put my 1/4 inch score tape right along that 1/2 inch, right next to my crease line. And cut. Burnish. I find this process easiest to do as you go, so I'm peeling off the backing and we're just going to stick that down. So that one is done. Now we're moving on to the second one. I do the same thing right up against this score line. We've got the 1/4 inch spacing in between. We're going to place our score tape right up against that line. Go over it with our bone folder to burnish it down. Remove the tape backing. And we're just going to fold this piece up, just like this. Flatten it down. We're going to continue on. We skip this little 1/4 inch piece. Go right to the next 1/2 inch space. Place our score tape. Burnish. Remove the backing. Fold our hinge back. Press down and do the rest of them. Once you have that step done, we're going to flip this over and we are just going to go back and forth, pressing down our hinges both directions. We want them to be nice and flexible so that our pages turn easily. I'll go back this way and do the same thing. Okay, the next step is to put score tape. We're going to use our 1/4 inch score tape and we're going to put it along the top side of each of the hinges on both sides of the hinge. Make sure you have it right up at the top. Now white on white, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm putting it right up at the top. That is important. And do that for all of your hinges. Now that we have our hinge done, we're going to bring our cover back in. And we are going to adhere our hinge to the cover. To adhere the hinge to the cover, we're again going to use some wet glue. I'm going to use my 3-in-1. And I am just going to put it all over the back, being generous of my hinge piece. Again, this is what's holding in our pages, so we want to make sure that we're generous with the glue right here. I'm just going to flip this over, and it is shorter than our spine piece that we laid down to cover our spine. So we're just going to eyeball it and try to position it between, I like the 3-in-1 because it gives you a lot of slip. And just want to center it between these score lines and then center it up and down as well to the best of your ability. Don't worry if it's not lining up with that piece that we laid down. That is not important. That will all be covered. So once you get it where you like it, just start going over it with your bone folder and getting out any air bubbles. You're going to start in one direction, like I'm starting at the left and I'm going to the right, and I'm going in between my hinges, just really getting in there, moving that glue. And if some glue starts to squirt out, that's okay. We can take care of that in a minute. Right now, we just want to get this secured down and get our air out. I can see I've got a little glue that has seeped out up here. I'm just going to go across it like that. Even take my bone folder, and it will dry clear anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Plus our pages will be extending over that area, so you won't even see it. The last thing we need to do to complete our cover is cut 2 pieces of 65-pound weight cardstock at 6.5 by 8.25. And we're just going to glue those down on our inside covers like that. And that will help to secure our hinge in place as well. Again, I'm going to use my Beacon 3-in-1. We're just going to glue it down, leaving an even border on those 3 sides and making sure not to go over our score line. And do that for both sides. The last thing we're going to do is go along our indentation and give that a gentle score on either side of our hinge. Use your ruler as a guide if you need to. I can feel where my gap is, so I'm not using my ruler. And at this point, we're just going to set this aside to fully dry before we fold it. In the meantime, we can start working on our pages. For our pages, you're going to need 6 paper bags. My bags measure 6 3/8 by 13.5. So all of the measurements will be based on the size of my bags. If you have bags that are a different size, feel free to modify the measurements, to suit your bags. These are pretty large bags, and that's what I love about them. Makes nice large pages. So for each of the bags, we are going to cut them down to 8 inches. Now you'll notice the way that my bag is folded, it's not like perfect right there. I'm not going to worry about that, but what I am going to do is find the straightest edge I have to put against my paper trimmer, and so I will get an even cut. So I'm just going to cut it. Line it up at 8.5 inches and cut. Do not throw away this excess because we will be using it. Do that for each of your bags. So we're going to take our 8-inch pieces and set those aside. And we're going to bring in what we cut off. And for these, we are going to orient them so that this rough edge is to the right. We have a closed folded edge at the top. And we're going to cut these down to 4 3/4. So this is the only scrap we're going to have, and you can go ahead and throw that away. Repeat that process for each piece. Next, we're going to bring these pieces that we just cut with the open sides on the side and the folded side at the top. We're going to put them in our scoreboard, and we are going to score at 4 1/4 inches. And you're going to want to repeat that for each of your pieces. Next, we're going to fold on the score line that we just created to make a tab. And again, we're going to do that on all of the pieces. Next, we are going to glue these pieces together where we made that little tab. I'm just going to use some art glitter glue. And I'm just going to go between the layers up to the fold. You don't want to go beyond that. Just kind of get your glue in there. You don't have to put a ton of glue in there. You just want to make sure that it's going to seal that up. So these are all stuck together now. Instead of right here, we've got, you know, you can see where they're layered and open. We want to just seal them up like that. So we're going to repeat that process for all of them. And these will be our pocket flaps. Or flips, however you want to see them. And each of these is designed to hold a 4x6 photo mat. Now the next step is optional. Since these are going to be our pockets, we could leave it open like this. I think it's just a little bit too floppy for me. So what I prefer to do is to put glue both in here and in here, just on these pieces that we've just been working on with the little tab that we made. and leaving this end open, of course, for photos. But that just kind of closes it up a bit and makes it so that it's just not so floppy and expandable, and will hold our photo mats better in the long run. So again, I'm just going to open these ends and just put some glue in there and seal those up. Doesn't have to be neat, doesn't have to be precise, just getting them stuck together. And now that way, when we open it up, we will have a division in between. So we'll put a photo mat, we can put a photo mat on either side, or a photo. Basically just creates a divided pocket instead of having all of this open. So we're going to do that to all of our pieces. For the page construction, when the page is like this, we've got an opening at the top. That is our top loading pocket, and the bottom is sealed. And on this side, we've got this flap, which will become a pocket. Now, I'm going to wait to glue this closed. We'll later put some glue just on each side of this little flap and glue that down, but we want to cover it with our decorative paper first, get that behind there, and then we'll glue it over it. So what we're going to be working on now is the other side, and that's where we're going to put these flaps that we made. And so what I like to do, I like to center my flaps, and so I know that this is 8 inches, so I'm just going to take my ruler and a pencil, and I'm just going to make a line at 4 inches right on the side, and I can do the same on this side at 4 inches. Then I'm going to take 2 of my flap pieces, and they're going to be inserted like this. So with the flap right in between the gusset. So what I want to do is identify the center point on here at a place where I can still see it when I'm inserting it, so I can line these two up. So my flaps measure about 6 1/4. So I'm going to put my mark at 3 1/8, and I'm going to put it right here next to my flap so that when I insert it, I'll be able to line those two marks up. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And once you get one in, you'll be able to also make any minor adjustments that you need to make with the other. So to glue these in, like I said, we're going to have this gusseted area on each side of the bag. Now, I don't want to glue this down completely, not yet. So what we're going to want to do is just glue the flap to the upper portion where it's going to be the part that it's going to be flipping over. So I'm just going to open up my flap like this, and I'm going to use my art glitter glue to put glue on the flap. Then I'm going to line up my pencil marks while inserting it in between this gusseted area. Just like that. And once I have it lined up, press it down. Make sure that it's all the way to the edge on both sides. It's a little hard to work with paper bags because they are thin and kind of floppy, but this goes together really quick. It makes for very quick page construction. So just going over it like that, and then I'll go over it again with my bone folder to crease it down. And we have one flap done. We're going to repeat that process over here. Again, lining up our pencil marks. My pencil mark a little shallow, there we go. So I'm going to, again, put my glue on the flap. Going to open up this side, insert this, lining up my pencil marks. I'm going to fold this over and make sure that I'm lined up and down. Now this one's up a little bit high compared to the other one, so we just move it. That's what makes the liquid glue a good choice to work with for this. Not all the way in right there, so you just want to make sure of that, that you're all the way in. So I'm going to burnish this down with my bone folder, and then I'm going to fold it over and burnish again. And so we have our first two flaps. We're going to do that again on another one until we've used up all of our flap pieces. So again, we don't want to do it on the side with this flap that will be a pocket. We want to do it on the plain side. I'm going to mark it at 4 inches on both sides. And we can erase these pencil lines later. I'm going to mark this one at 3 1/8. And I'm going to mark this one at 3 1/8. apply glue to the flap. Open the gusset and insert the flap, lining up the pencil marks and making sure that the entire flap is flush against the side of the bag. At this point, we're going to go down with our bone folder, fold over, and reinforce that with our bone folder. Do the same thing over here. Opening the gusset, inserting, lining up, making sure that we're all the way in but not over. I'm going to fold over a little bit to make sure that we're lined up on this side, and we are, so we can go ahead and burnish that down. Fold over and burnish. We have 2 flaps left, so let's grab one more page base. Make sure it's on the plain side. Mark it 4 inches. And mark our flaps at 3 1/8. Apply our glue. Open up the gusset. Insert our flap. Burnish. Fold and burnish again. And we've got one last one to go. Insert it, lining up the pencil marks. Do a quick fold over to make sure we're lined up, and we are. Burnish it down, fold over, and burnish. So now we have 3 pages that we have flaps on, and we have 3 plain pages. And that's pretty much it. You just want to mix and match your styles now. Before you insert these into your book, you might want to decorate them first, but I'm not going to do that just for the purposes of getting this video done. I'm going to go ahead and put them, kind of like figure out how I want them to appear in the book, and then we're going to get these glued in. So let's go ahead and get that figured out. Before I do that, I'm going to just erase any pencil marks. And to do that, I love this Tombow Mono plastic eraser. It works so well. Makes short work of any pencil marks. Just going to get those off of there real quick. Sorry for the shaking. And these are all ready to go. So I'm just going to stick them up at the top, and I'm just going to try to envision how I want them to appear in my book. I think for my first page, I want to do a pocket page with flaps on the back. So this will be page 1, which I can write on here. And this will be page 2. I'll be covering that with paper, so you won't see those numbers. So for my page 3, I'm going to take one of these blank ones. So I'm going to have this blank page. This will be page 3. And you can do yours however you want to. This is just how I'm doing mine. And I'm going to have a pocket page for page 4. And I think I also want a pocket page for page 5, so that when I open them up, they'll be like twin pages. So this will be page 5. We'll have a blank page on page 6. And some flaps on page 7. Page 8 will be a pocket. Page 9 is going to be a blank page with a pocket on the back. So this is page 10. And let's see, I'm going to do double pocket pages again. So that's 11. And this will be page 12. And then I'll have my back cover. So that is how I am going to put them in. Now that we have these in order, let's put them into the book. Now before we put them in, we still have to fold our book. So sometimes helps to remember where we made those score lines. Sometimes helps to have a ruler and just gently start lifting. It's going to resist a little bit, but that's fine. And that came up nicely. And I'm just going to turn it around and do the same thing on this side. And once you have those started, you can just fold them. I like to just go back and forth just a little bit. Just be gentle because you don't want your paper to tear or crack. This will just help it to loosen up a little bit. And right now it just wants to spring open, and that's natural, but as you work with it and it gets more trained to being in that closed position, it will stay down. In fact, what you can do is just, after we get these pages in, just let it sit in a laying down kind of position. You could even put something rather light on top of it just to make sure that it's in the closed position, and gravity will naturally just make it, you know, go down into the position that you want it to be. You want to take a look at your covers and you want to identify, do I want this to be my front cover, or would I rather this be my front cover? So you just need to pick a side. I'm fine with this being my front cover. I think both my sides look about the same. And so, because right now the orientation doesn't matter, but it will once we get the pages in. So you want to determine now which way you want that to go. So we're going to grab our first page, the one that says 1, and I'm going to flatten out my hinges just a little bit. And so our first page is going to go on the first hinge, and we are just going to insert it right in here. So let me show you before we actually do it. Just kind of a practice. We're going to open up this gusseted side, and we are just going to slip that right over our hinge. Like that. We also want it centered up and down as best we can. And what we're going to do is line it up with our score tape. So You can see this is 1/4 inch score tape, and we only want to go down as far as where the score tape ends. So I'm going to do what we did when we made the cover. We're just going to pull the backing back like this, leaving it so we can grab it, and that will give us some time to line up our page. So I'm just, again, going to slip this on, making sure I'm in the gusset. And I'm not pressing down on the score tape yet. Just trying to get this aligned where I want it, to where it looks pretty even from the top to the bottom, and it's covering my score tape. So you want to look right here. That's the spacing that you want. And when you get it, you just want to press down on that area that's sticky. And you're just going to kind of hold it, and you're going to gently pull off this backing, making sure that you stay lined up at the bottom. And push it all the way down. And we have our first page. So we're just going to turn this page over. Now, at this point, we're just going to expose our score tape right here. And I like to just take all of it off and lift the page up like this and just press it into place. So when you turn it over, you're all good to go. So for our next page, it's going to be page 3, goes on our second hinge. Peel back this backing. Gonna open it up, making sure that we're opening and that we're putting it right in the hinge, not in this pocket area. Or right in the gusset, not the hinge. And we're going to just repeat the process, getting it lined up as best we can. Sticking down, removing the backing. Folding over. And removing the backing from the score tape on this side. Standing our page up. And pressing in place. Mine got a little wonky right there. I'm going to see if I can fix it. Might just be stuck with it, no pun intended, but that's okay. These are paper bags, and there's a little bit of variance in them just because of the way they're imperfectly folded. But once we get our book assembled, you won't even notice little things like that. So next we're going to take page number 5, do the same thing. That goes on hinge number 3. Open up our gusset. Slip it on. Get it lined up. Remove the backing. Now it's going to want to slip at the bottom when you remove the backing, so make sure that you're holding it down as you tear the backing off. and redirecting it into place. Flip the page. Remove the backing on this side. Now, at this point, I don't think we need to stand it up anymore because it's further into the book. If you want to, you can, but it pretty easily just sticks right down. Page 7 goes on the next hinge. Always making sure that you're in the gusset, not this flat portion. Getting it lined up. Sticking down, holding as you remove the backing. Flipping it over. Removing the backing. Tilting it up just a little bit. Pressing down to stick that side down. Page 9. See how fast it comes together once you reach this point? Insert. Line up. Flip. Getting to the part now where we might benefit from standing it up again. It just depends on the angle of how your page is going onto the hinge, and that will vary between how many pages are in front of it or behind it. And the last one. Gonna slip it on there. Make sure it is in the proper place. Press it down. Hold while you remove the backing. Flip. Remove the backing. Stand up and press. So now we have all of our pages inserted. So depending on how you lined yours up, this is how mine looks. I'm going to have a pocket right here. Then I'm going to have the flips right here, blank page here, pocket, pocket, oops, blank page, flip pockets, pocket page, blank page, double pocket pages, and a flip. Now with this step, kind of like what we did with these to make them, remember how they used to be really loose because this gusset was open and we glued it shut? We're going to do the same thing with our pages now that they are inserted. So just glue this portion. I didn't want to do that in advance because we needed to leave the side open to put on the hinge, and you know, I wanted to give you the flexibility to change your mind, flip it over, you know, whatever, and use either side to be able to insert it. But now that we've got it in there, just going to take our glue and we're going to do exactly like we did before. We're just going to open up this gusset and we're just going to squirt glue in there just like we did on the flaps, just to close that up. So you can just do it on one side if you want to, and then we'll just press it together, and that will make your page much sturdier. And we're going to do it on each of the pages. Only takes a minute and it makes a big difference. So that is the base construction of the album. These are all top-loading pockets, and I will include a list of the the photo mat insert size that I use for this pocket, and I'll also include the photo mat insert size that I use for this pocket. Now, another thing that you can do, and it's completely up to you, is this pocket is divided. So you can put something in the front and something in the back. Or you can do what we did before and we can glue this shut. So where we have this divider, we can just glue it down to one side. And that way we would just have one pocket instead of a divided pocket. It makes it a little bit easier to slip things in and out, but that's completely optional and up to however you want to do it. Again, in the description box down below, I will include the photo mat insert sizes for both the top-loading pocket and these flap pockets, as well as all of the mat sizes for the pages. So this will be considered like a full page. This would be a pocket page, so I'll give you the mat sizes for both of these pages. And then also for the flap pages. Now, just as a reminder, on the pages where we have these pockets, you're going to choose your decorative paper. Again, I'll give you the mat size for that. You're going to glue it on your page, and after you have that glued down in place, you're going to fold this back, and you're just going to apply glue to this side and this side. And then you'll just fold it up. I recommend wet glue for that, and that will create your pocket. But again, you don't want to do that until you've got your decorative paper on that base page. If you decide to make one of these, I would love to see it. So please email me. My email is in the description box down below. Or if you have a YouTube channel, please tag me. I would love to see your creation. I'll be saving my base for an Easter project, and so as it gets a little bit closer to Easter, I'll be decorating it off camera, and I'll be sure to do a walkthrough video at that time. I'll be sure to include links to the products that I used in the description box below, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Also, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Until then, bye!